Name Isar Serwanka. Born in 1933. Lived in Wagrovec. Died in Treblinka. Murdered by the Nazis in 1942 at age 9. Name Claarte Rootveld. Lived in Amsterdam. Died in Sobibor. Murdered by the Nazis in 1943 at age 4. Name Nikolaus Weiss. Died in Auschwitz. Murdered by the Nazis at age 8. Name Judith Lieberman. Born in 1939. Lived in Sixerda. Died in Auschwitz. Murdered by the Nazis in 1944 at age 5. Name Nahum Barbatskos. Born in 1942. Lived in Janina. Died in Auschwitz. Murdered by the Nazis in 1944 at age 2. Name Shara Kraus. Lived in Cholochau. Murdered by the Nazis in 1942 at age 10. Name Chaya Werdiger. Born in 1930. Lived in Sosnowiec. Died in Auschwitz. Murdered by the Nazis at age 10. Name Cloud Markovicki. Lived in Nietzsche. Died in Auschwitz. Murdered by the Nazis in 1944 at age 6. Name Laszlo Singer. Lived in Seiksard. Died in Auschwitz. Murdered by the Nazis in 1944 at age 5. Name Dundee Fried. Born in 1940. Died in Auschwitz. Murdered by the Nazis in 1944 at age 4. Name Margot Grunwald. Born in 1938. Lived in Koske. Died in Auschwitz. Murdered by the Nazis in 1944 at age 6. Name Hanna Wachschlag. Born in 1936. Lived in Zialoske. Died in Skalamirz. Murdered by the Nazis in 1942 at age 6. Name Isya Tokar. Born in 1937. Lived in Kamelnik. Died in Lichchev. Murdered by the Nazis in 1942 at age 5. Name Hanna Weissova. Lived in Morkatska, Ostrava. Died in Sobibor. Murdered by the Nazis in 1942 at age 3. Name Shunia Winshelbom. Lived in Botanoka. Died in Korczak. Murdered by the Nazis in 1942 at age 7. Name Pavesh Kharmek. Born in 1934. Lived in Dukhfaz. Died in Dukhfaz. Murdered by the Nazis in 1941 at age 7. Name Hania Prozar. Lived in Chubelzov. Died in Chubelzov. Murdered by the Nazis in 1942 at age 4. Name Raya Spivak. Lived in Korma. Died in Korma. Murdered by the Nazis in 1941 at age 7. Name Mordecai Kraus. Lived in Veliki Kapusiny. Died in Auschwitz. Murdered by the Nazis in 1944 at age 7. Name Duvedel Kosower. Born in 1936. Lived in Laszlo. died in Treblinka, murdered by the Nazis in 1942 at age 6.